Whether you want more innovation more easily, you're feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, or you simply know that something isn't quite the way you know it can be, you are not alone. I hear the same from leaders every day. On Uncommon Leadership, we explore aligning personal fulfillment with business success, creating authentic teams, and cultivating the resilience, adaptability, and ease necessary to move beyond simply surviving today's challenges into thriving. I'm Michael Hunter with Uncommon Teams, and today we will uncover fresh insights into what it means to lead. Joining me is Gary Montalvo. Gary is a leadership and mindset coach who helps big-hearted entrepreneurs stop being the bottleneck in their business. With nearly 20 years of experience coaching solopreneurs, startups, and executives around the world, Gary is known for his real talk, practical strategies, and contagious energy. He's the former Chief Growth Officer at Lime Life by Alcone and the host of the Ownership podcast. Get ready for a conversation that's grounded, honest, and I am sure will be packed with tools to help you lead with confidence and grow on your terms. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and having a podcast host myself. I know what it means when you bring somebody in and the vetting and the preparing and all the work that goes to it. People think this stuff is really easy, but it's a lot of work. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing all that work to have me and share me with your people. Thank you.
You're welcome. And let's start off, Gary. When did you first recognize that integrating your whole self and bringing that into everything that you do might be a valuable approach?
Oh, man. So my first career, I was an art director. So I was an art director at Sony Music at the age of 22. And I graduated from the School of Visual Arts. It was the first job that I ever interviewed for. And so, at 22, I had my fancy office on the 29th floor of Sony Music, and I made it, And I very quickly, when I got there, I started to realize that I was really well prepared for how to make something look good and market something, but I was really not prepared for navigating the complexities, the politics of working in a large company and navigating artists and leading. I would part of my job was to art direct the photo shoots. And when you're in a photo shoot, it's my team, hair, makeup, stylist, props, photographer, assistants, and then the artists and their people and managers, A&R, and whoever shows up, like whoever's cousins, friends, partner, somebody shows up and now they're in there and they have an opinion. And then you have the record label. And it was like my job to get all these people to unify and come together under one vision and agree on a strategy. And I was 22 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. And so I very quickly started to realize, something's going on here. But how I framed it was something's wrong. Something's wrong with me. And I spent the next, I would say, certainly next maybe 10 years of my career trying to hide the fact that something was wrong. So, like going to work, I think on the surface I was doing an okay job. I think nobody would say, oh my God, Gary didn't know but underneath the surface, it was like panic. It was anxiety. It was like, oh my God, any moment they're going to find out, any moment, like a lot of imposter syndrome. So I did Sony for 4 years, and then I said, okay, let me go to a smaller company. If I leave the pressures of a big, corporation, I'll go to a smaller company. I was still doing marketing. I was doing marketing for Broadway shows, and I went to a smaller agency, 30 people, and I was like, okay, this is more manageable. No, it was still the same thing, and same experience, same not feeling enough, same like, oh my God, same the pressure. And after 4 years of that, I said, okay, I'm going to go work for myself. When I do this on my own, I don't have to worry about my bosses and approvals and all this stuff. but I very quickly realized you take yourself wherever you go, and so I started to go, okay, what is this? This is something I have to really focus on. And it was my journey of personal development started, and it started with therapy and then coaching and then leadership training. And I just went down the rabbit hole of understanding that I take myself wherever I go, and changing the circumstances is not the solution. Which is a lot how we try to solve problems as humans. We try to change the people, we try to change the job, we try to change the relationship, we try to change the school or whatever it is, but it's you take yourself wherever you go. And so, that was a kind of long answer to the journey, but it wasn't like a clear moment. It was just like this process of realizing that, and I think part of that was also realizing that it didn't have to be that way and that could be better. I'm not sure when that part kicked in, but I started seeking that something could be better, right? Because I started doing therapy and doing coaching and doing all these things. So I think that that's also part of it, that you have to believe that something could be different, for yourself and for your team, your company, like whatever it is that you got on your plate.
That journey you just described, Gary, has a lot alike with just about every other person I talk with.
Yeah.
We think that, this person's CEO or founder of this big important company, or is starting up this little company that's having such an impact in their community, they must have it all together. No, they are working through all the same things that you and I and our listeners are of. I'm not enough. This isn't working. I'm doing something wrong. I don't have enough XYZ. We all have the same problems. And as you say, so often we try to run away from them, and they just keep following along, because they're not something that we can just, it's not like a backpack that we can just take off. It's integrated all through us. And we have to detangle and dissolve all of those tangles to be able to fully move past. And of course, we can never find every single one. So it's always going to be a thing. It can become less and less and less active in driving us if we're willing to do the work, as you decided you were willing to do. So what helps you realize that things could be better, could be different, and it was worth it to you to do the work you knew it would be to move towards that goal?
I'm trying to think back and remember, because of course, you only remember the highlight reels. I think what had me take action was more of desperation, right? Like it was like this feeling of like, I'm drowning here. I don't know that I knew that it could be better at that point, if I'm being honest. I'm trying to remember. I think what I knew was that I recognized that I needed help. And I guess on some level, I recognized that I could be helped, right? Because otherwise, I don't know that I would have taken the action. Where I remember, like, the world opening up for me was not even when I started to do personal development. I found this training that was like one of these like, trainings where they put everybody in a room and they have you do exercises for 5 days and talk about them and process and all that. And that was extremely powerful for me, because I started to learn distinctions that allowed me to see myself and allowed me to see how I could change my perception. So I started to understand the distinctions between, victim and responsibility. I started to understand distinctions of choice. I started to understand the distinction of interpretation. Like, I feel like until human beings get that, because even when you have that distinction, even when you get it, you still walk around like you know the truth. Like the way that you see it is reality, and the way that you see it is right, and the way that But it's like the moment that you get that, it's like, oh wait, 99.9% of life is just an interpretation. Whoa. And if I can change the interpretation, then I can change my access to life and my experience. Like when I got that, it was just like, I mean, literally this veil just lifted, and I got like the keys to the kingdom. I've got like this access that I never saw before, and it was just such a wake up call, and it gave me the tools to really get responsible for creating the life that I want, creating the relationships that I want, creating the experience of life that I want. A lot of times experience is one of those areas where mostly we have it show up, and then we decide, like, oh, it's sunny today. Okay, that means I'm going to experience a good day. It's bright outside. I'm gonna feel good. Oh, it's raining today. It's gonna be streets. Traffic's gonna be a mess. It's gonna, my commute's gonna be awful. I'm gonna be late for work, and it's gonna be a bad day. Mostly our experience is dictated by the circumstances and that we are, see coming at us. But when you start to get these distinctions that we're talking about, you really can say, oh, it's raining and I can still choose to have an amazing day. It's raining and I can still choose to see this as an awesome opportunity to create value, to make an impact, to learn something, to have fun, to go with the flow, to listen to a great podcast like this one while I'm stuck in traffic. Like, there's just so many. It opens up the whole world. And when you start to play around and bring leadership to choosing your experience, you really start to unlock something there. Right? Because that's one of those areas where mostly we relate to it as victims. Like, my experience shows, depending on how my inbox looks, that's my experience, right? Depending on how what's for lunch, or, but when you start to go, oh, no, I have something to say about how I choose to experience life, and that's really what started to kind of just free me up. And really allow me to approach life and my career in a whole new different way, right?
So first, Gary, I want to know, what is the 0.01% of life that's not wholly your perception?
Yeah, so that's the stuff. This is a microphone, right? That's not really up for debate. Now, this is a good mic. This is a bad mic. I like this mic. I don't like this mic. I wish I had a different mic. Oh my God, this mic is the best mic. Like, those are the 99.9%. Your interaction with it and how you respond and all of that. It's a great example that I like to use is, in the context of body parts, this is a finger, right? Now, in the context of numbers, it's a 1. In the context of directions, up. In the context of a restaurant, check, please. In the context of a computer, it's a tool. So this hasn't changed. But when I change the language around it, well, now I interact with it differently. Now I see different opportunities. Now I see different ways of responding. So the 0.1% is the physicality, the actual stuff that is like, reality. Now, I also want to say some of that is interpretation as well, right? Because this is a microphone. It's a social construct, right? We decided that this was a microphone and that this is what, we decided. This is it's not a good example, but like a chair, for example. A chair, it's like, but I could stand on it, I could turn it around, flip it, and make it a sculpture or something. I don't know. But it's still a chair. It's just we've all agreed that that's what a chair is. So it's also a little bit of interpretation there as well. It's a really good question.
This is a great example of reframing. When we talk about reframing our emotions or experience, that can be very challenging sometimes to understand. A, that it can even is possible, and then B, that like how to do that and what it means. And there's all these other expectations and beliefs and assumptions that come into that can make it really challenging to understand how this horrible situation I'm in could be reframed into something positive. And so using an example of a finger can be easier for a lot of us to identify all these alternative explanations or frames of what that is, how it could be used, how it might be useful versus not. And it really shows how everything that we say can be interpreted a million different ways. Mm-hmm. If I say this project is finished, I might mean it's complete. And I might mean it's a total disaster. And it's never going to be complete, and we're just throwing it away because it's not worth spending more effort on. Same 3 words, 4 words.
Yeah.
So what has helped you have the perspective to reframe your experience over and over and over?
Yeah. So the only thing that has you do that work is you have to be up to something. And what you're up to has to be something that is worthy of your attention and your inspiration. It has to be something that pulls you. Life is hard. We have challenges. We have obstacles. The things that keep us going is that you've created a game, a vision, a goal that is juicy enough, exciting enough, inspiring enough to have you do the work of going through those obstacles. So and this is why, as a leader, it's so important to do the work of reflecting and articulating what are the things that matter to us and what are the experiences that we want to have and want to create with others. For example, I am very driven by making sure that everyone that comes into my space leaves bigger in some way, has some kind of expansion. I'm very driven by that. And so there's a way that I am really driven by empowering people in being fully realized and fully self-expressed and fully alive. So I have started to train myself to be the kind of person that can do that. And I'll give you a perfect story of this. When I first started coaching for that program that I told you about, when I completed that program, one of the options you have is to go back and mentor the next class. And so a lot of the coaches in the space are just graduates who are mentoring. And so I was so moved by somebody taking 3 months out of their life to mentor me in this way, and just because they cared, that I was like, oh, I'm doing this just to pay it forward. And, through this program, I had my little group. I had like 5 people that I was like in charge of. And they all start the program by writing these letters of goals, these big, huge goals that they're up to. And about 2 months in, we still got a month left, we do this exercise where we check in. They're checking in with their results and their progress, but the coaches are sitting there checking the results of their people as well. Like, you're measuring your success based on how your team is doing. And my team was failing so miserably. So miserably. They were just, it was awful. But they love me. They love me. I was their cheerleader. I was their rah-rah guy. They love me. They would and what I realized after doing that exercise was I was more committed to them liking me than to them winning. See, up until that point, one of my main strategies for surviving life had been being liked. I was teased a lot as a kid, so being liked became survival. When I got to college, I wasn't the smartest, I wasn't the most successful. I worked the hardest, but I also was very likable. Teachers took an interest in me, and they contributed to me, and I leaned into that, right? So there was a way that being liked became like a tool of for my success, and a tool of, and it wasn't manipulative. I wasn't being fake, but it was, I became charming. Right? I became charming. I became funny. I literally remember the day that I decided to be funny. I was in junior high school and somebody made fun of me. And for some reason, I came back with a joke that was funnier than his joke. And everybody around me started cracking up. And I literally said, oh, if I can make the bigger joke, then I control the narrative. I control the situation. Okay. And in that moment, I became a smartass because it got me something. Now that I'm coaching, those skills were getting in my way because coaching involves hard conversations. Coaching involves holding people accountable. Coaching involves holding somebody's hand in the fire and pushing them beyond their limits. And up until that point, I wasn't willing to risk them not liking me. So then I had to start doing the work of dismantling all those defense mechanisms. I had to do the work of dismantling and training myself to be able to say the uncomfortable things. Because I declared that day that I was no longer going to be the reason why somebody else didn't win. I was no longer going to be the thing that stood in somebody's way. I had to look and go, okay, what? I was the only common denominator between the team. 5 people, different lives, I was the one thing linking them all together, So you have to have something that you care about deeply enough to make you go into the shadow parts, to make you go into the dark parts. And for me, that's people. For me, that has always been people. There are times when you'll see it, especially in the tech world, you'll see that there's an innovative idea. Steve Jobs, comes to mind. Elon Musk. These are people that are hyper passionate about putting forward some idea, and as a result, they push to the limits. They may not have always been the greatest leaders, and this is where you and I come in to help them with those moments, because when you make the mission more important than the people and taking care of the people, well, that brings a whole other set of problems that we haven't gotten into yet. But what drives you, what has you do that deep work is you have to have something that calls you forward and lights you up, and you get to decide what that is. It could be just your family. Some people are just like really driven by creating, opportunities for their family and their kids. But you have to know what that is. And in my experience, the leader in me will invite you to have it be something that is to understand how that vision, your part, fits into the bigger picture. Even if it's like, oh, I just want the world to be better for my kids. Okay, well, how does that ripple? Who do your kids get to become in the world? What's the impact that your kids get to have in the world now? What kind of leaders do they go off and be because of the work that you're doing with them now? Like, you have to understand how it fits into the bigger picture, because then you can really understand the ripple effect and understand the opportunities that are really available in that moment. Right?
How do you, Gary, create the space where your clients can feel safe and empowered to truly understand what that is for themselves, and then to turn around and helps them do that for their employees and the people that they care about?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm so glad you asked this question, because I wanted to tie it back to something you said earlier. For me, my secret sauce has been authenticity. And I think the world has changed a lot. When I first started coaching, we didn't live in a world where we demanded authenticity from people, right? Now we live in a world where we demand it. We really, the moment that we don't feel someone is authentic, we hang them out to dry, right? It's not someone we want to follow. It's not someone we want to lead. But it wasn't always like that, and it wasn't like that for me, because if we started talking about how leadership, one of the ways that people learn leadership is they try to emulate what other leaders look like. They try to go, oh, that person is a leader, so I'm going to try to do it like that person does it. But when you're doing that, mostly you feel fake and you feel inauthentic and you feel like me at my old job. Like, what am I doing? Every day I showed up to work, I wasn't sharing that, oh my God, I'm freaking out every day. I didn't have anybody to talk to about that. If I knew that my boss dealt with something similar, well, now I could have had somebody to actually share that with, and who knows what could have happened for me? Who knows how my life would have looked differently? I mean, my life is pretty awesome now, but you get what I'm saying. So I think that, for me, the way that I do that is I'm just a champion of authenticity. I'm a champion of sharing the mess, sharing, the biggest way that I create safety for people is by not pretending that I have it all together, and by being extremely honest about the fact that I don't. And when I don't have an answer to something, I don't make it up. I go, I don't know, but we're going to figure this out together. Right? One of my biggest leadership moments was very early in my career, when I was starting to master public speaking and getting on stages. I would get on, these stages. I would get in, start workshops or whatever it was, and I would be nervous because, again, I was sitting here pretending that I'm like, oh, I'm a coach and I have it all together and I know what I'm doing, and I would start to sweat. And I don't have any hair, so the sweat would just start dripping down. and I'm a sweater. Like I am like, we're talking about, so I'm wearing these suits because I'm pretending to be somebody else, right? I'm pretending to put on confidence. So I'm wearing these suits. I'm this hot and now I'm sweating. I can't take off my jacket because I have these huge sweat stains underneath my shirts. You know, people would start to get uncomfortable and like go to the bathroom and bring me towels. You know, I literally have puddles of sweat because I would have to kind of like do this and just like kind of dump it on the floor there. And then I'm like literally slipping and sliding on the floor in sweat. It was like, and the whole time, Michael, I'm sitting there pretending that I'm not sweating. Like everything's okay, you know, everything's okay. And you know, I realized, okay, I got to change my strategy here. And so I started going up in front of the room and I started saying, hey guys, my name is Gary Montalvo. I'm really nervous right now. You know, I want to make sure that I do a good job and I'm nervous. I'm going to probably start sweating. And so I have a towel here to make sure that, you know, I'm going to be like Luther Vandross right now and I'm going to like pat myself down. All right, you guys ready to get started? And I did it I did it for one reason. I understood in some level that that if I did that, I would be free. The moment I did that, I was no longer worried about sweating. I was no longer pretending that I was sweating. I removed that obstacle. I freed myself up. I used my learned skill of charm and making a joke. I used it now intentionally, right, to take control of the situation and diffuse it. The next part was something that I discovered and has been probably my biggest leadership lesson in my entire life. By me sharing that, I immediately had the room. Immediately, everybody was on Team Gary. They were with me. I thought, you know, that it was going to be for me, but I gave them freedom. I gave them permission. I you know, and because who couldn't relate to being nervous in front of a room? Everybody could relate to that. So in that moment, they said, oh, Gary's real. I can trust Gary because he's telling me the truth. Gary's mirroring my experience. And that has been my philosophy for my entire career. I speak very candidly. I speak very openly. I will never be one of these people that pretends and shares. I show you the mess. That is the biggest way that I can teach you, the biggest way that I can create safety for you, the biggest way that I can show you that you're not alone, right? So that's how I do it, and I think that ends up being contagious. You know, so leaders that I work with will start to bring that into their environments and what they're doing. And the biggest, most common feedback that I get is that there's a way that I am with people that teaches them to stop judging themselves, because they can see that, oh, I'm not alone. This is something that, if Gary, who I respect, had to go through the same thing that I went through, well, okay, nothing's wrong with me. And I feel like when we start bringing that kind of leadership, that kind of authenticity to our leadership, it's so powerful. It's so powerful because it gives people space to be themselves. It gives people space to have authentic conversations. It gets people invested in you, not because they have to stay late because you told them to, but because they want to have your back when you need it. So your deadline is my deadline. Go ahead.
This is an important distinction. There's authenticity, and there's what percent of our authentic selves we share. And the percentage that we're sharing is way less important than the purity of the authenticity. If when the switch that you made in those presentations wasn't that you showed up and spent half an hour or even 30 seconds going through your full authentic experience right then in your life up till then. You focused on one piece of it, and that's what you were authentic about, and everything else stayed inside, and it's fine. What people resonated with and responded to was you are 100% authentic with the parts that you were sharing. And everyone knows that there's always parts we're not sharing. And the people who don't filter anything are often people that we don't enjoy being around with because it's too much information.
Yeah.
And my opening question was about integrating our whole self and bringing that into everything you do. And this doesn't have to mean it is sharing all of that with everyone in every situation. It means bringing all of that with us so that we are all there, so that we can know what parts of us will help move this moment forward.
Yeah. And I talk about it a little bit differently too, like, but your authenticity does not supersede your responsibility and your commitment. So yes, I'm very authentic, but what I share, my authenticity has a purpose. It's inside of a larger commitment and a larger responsibility that I signed up for. And I think that those are the distinctions for me that keep me grounded, you know? Like it wouldn't be helpful for me, like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm so scared, right? Like, you know, that wouldn't be helpful to share. It's okay if you experience that. I would probably go get support and get myself, you know, and then go, you know, or share it in a way that's inside of the commitment. Hey, I don't know. I'm nervous right now, guys. I don't know. I don't have the answer figured out, but my commitment is to figure it out. And together we're going to do this work. Right? So you can still share the authenticity inside of what you're up to, inside of the vision and responsibility and commitment that you have. There is a movement, a little, I don't know if movement is the right word, but it does seem to be very popular now to just value authenticity for the sake of authenticity. You know, like, oh, I'm just sharing my truth. I'm like, yeah, but it's not really contributing anything or adding anything, or, you know, like, like what's the purpose of you sharing the truth other than you just want to get it out? Because, you know.
That intention is super important, and also is sharing in a way that's safe for you and for everyone else. It doesn't mean that any of us are going to be comfortable necessarily. We may all be super uncomfortable. Discomfort isn't the same as not being safe.
Yeah. Yes, that's really good.
So what is the business value of doing all this?
Well, I started to just tap into it, right? I think, you know, something that's happening a lot with leadership is that it just becomes transactional. There's a way that people invest in leadership all because they're trying to get something out of somebody. Right? They're trying to get the team to do something, perform better, you know, be okay with the transition. And that reads as inauthentic. You know, when you start to only care because there's a goal that you have, it just I think in the end it might do some more harm than good, because people start to smell that and feel manipulated. I think that if you're a person in a leadership position, you want to start stepping into a world where this is part of your everyday practice and this is part of what you care about, and not something that you turn on when you're trying to manipulate a situation. But I always talk about it. It's like, look, I'm a leader when I'm crossing the street. I'm a leader when I'm sitting in the toilet. I'm a leader when I'm, it's like you are, it's like 7-Eleven. It's always open for business. You're always bringing yourself wherever you go. The value of that is that you now can adhere to the standards and values that you subscribe to. And here's what I mean by that, right? I just shared with you very candidly that I am someone committed to have everyone in my space leave bigger than when they came in, right? That I really want everybody to be empowered. I didn't say the people that I like, the people that don't annoy me, the people that drive well in traffic. I said everyone. And so when I'm moving about the world, when I'm moving about my teams, there will inevitably be somebody who annoyed, or, the moments I'm in traffic, somebody cuts me off and I go, motherfucker. And then I have to check myself, because I remember my commitment to empower everyone, right? In my teams, there'll be someone not performing, creating, more work for me, right? Making me look bad with my superiors. And now I get, my human reaction is to go, damn it. Why? I explained this to you. You didn't do it like I tell you to do it. Blah, 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 blah. Human. The leader me approaches that differently and says, okay, what's going on here? We had this conversation. It didn't go that way. Where was the breakdown? What is there for me to learn in this situation? What is there, what is there a simple shift that can happen? Very often it's I didn't want to bother you. So they took on extra work without checking in with me, because they had a perceived idea that bothering me would be a problem. Okay, got it. So we can dismantle this right here, right? We can, until I understand that that's a hidden belief that you have running in the background. Well, that's always going to interfere with how you relate to me. But if I just approach it from my humanity and not from my leadership, then I could have possibly lost a team member that could have been rehabilitated. I could have, saved the company God knows how much money, because we're not making these mistakes. I could have saved HR having to get involved. Like, there's a huge ripple effect that can happen from you taking on this way of being and this skill set and getting curious about yourself, about other people, about what could make a difference. And yeah, you're going to get annoyed because it's human, but then put that annoyance aside and get present in your commitment. And my commitment, again, is always to leave people empowered. So how can I bring that to this situation here? Your commitment may not be exactly that, it could be articulated differently for you. But even if your commitment is to efficiency and getting accuracy, same thing. I can have a conversation with you because you're annoying me. I can have a conversation because I'm judging you for your lack of performance, or I can have a conversation with you because I care and I want to support you in being more effective at your job. Same conversation, but for you, the experience is going to be very different. It is much more fun to have a conversation about how can I support and empower somebody than it is about how can I reprimand them and get them to like. Those are going to be completely different experiences for you. It's going to be a completely different experience for the person you're having the conversation with. Okay, completely different experience. Same thing. Finger, we just changed the conversation around it. We just changed the context around it. And so when we bring that type of leadership, I think just it opens up the possibility for so many things. And ultimately what happens is people understand that they're being invested in. People understand that they're being taken care of, and that they're and that conversation you had was for my growth. And the moment that people understand that you're committed to their growth, they will let you push them. They will let you take them to task. They will let you hold them accountable because they trust you. And they understand that you are looking, yes, for the results in the company, but that they're part of that. And the moment that breaks down, you have a problem.
And it's all these interferences that are preventing the company from doing everything that it wants to be doing. And
yeah,
the tiniest one that we can remove will make an enormous difference. And if we manage to remove 2 or 3 or even 5 or 10, then oh my gosh, the difference is exponential. And it just proceeds from there. So that if every day we can make one tiny thing a tiny bit better, then the compounding effects are unbelievable.
Yeah.
This is a lot of change to work this way, to bring into our companies. It brings a lot of uncertainty for ourselves, for boards, for our employees, and oftentimes a lot of overwhelm. And it's not happening just at work. We're getting this from all the rest of our life these days as well. How do you help people find their way through all that?
Yeah, we create a transition plan. You should absolutely not move all the furniture around in the house at the same time. Like that would just it would, even if it would create absolute chaos for you. No, you find out. You look where the biggest opportunities are that are going to have the biggest impacts. What's the low hanging fruit? What's the areas that, and every company's going to be different. Sometimes you need a department. Sometimes it's a particular leadership position. Sometimes it is cultural. Very often people will start. When people will bring me in and they're like, "Fix my team," and I'm like, "Okay." And then very quickly, I'm like, well, no, you have to be part of this process too. I'm not going to sit here and coach your team without coaching you. Like, they're like, my team's always late. Well, you just showed up late too, and you didn't acknowledge it. So yeah, you're absolutely communicating to everybody that it's okay to be late. So no, it 100%, and you just have to be strategic about it. Obviously, the operations of the company have to keep running and have to keep working. So, but you look to see, you create phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and you roll it out. It should not be something that you try to do overnight. And I'm so glad you asked that question, because one of the expectations that people can sometimes have is that we just flip a switch. Like, oh, we did that training. The team should be fixed. Culture is in place now, like we did that exercise where we created a new vision statement. We're done. We have a new vision. Now, how do you reinforce that daily? How do you reinforce it in your conversations, in your behaviors? How do you, keep it alive with the team? And how do you deepen their understanding of it? Like, those are things that need to be rolled out. What are the icebreaker exercises that you can introduce at your next meeting to tie it back to that vision statement that we created? You have to be very thoughtful about those things. And this is where a leadership consultant would be invaluable, because they'll help you map that out and they'll help you figure it out. And the other thing about having an outside person in that position, that whether it's really valuable is, listen, the company is going to be focused on, keeping the wheels moving. And so what can happen with initiatives like this is that now you have somebody in charge of something else now also hold the accountability for the leadership development. So you put someone like, the CMO, the CFO in charge of the leadership development. Well, guess what? They're running operations, they're running finance, they're running, HR, they're running all this other stuff. But now they also have to hold this part. Having somebody in the outside who is focused just on this and not the 27 other million widgets moving around in your company can be really valuable, because they're not going to be distracted, right? And they'll be the gentle reminder to say, hey guys, how are we bringing this back in? I know that we have this deadline too, but how can we integrate this new culture into that deadline as well? Patience. Don't expect it to be something that just happens overnight, and you just got to create a transition plan. You got to figure out which are the parts that need to move first, and when is it appropriate to move on to moving the other furniture. Don't just, I always give people, whenever I'm giving people new job titles and more specifically new ways of being, at a minimum I give them 3 months of like reinforced coaching before they can fly solo, is what I'm trying to say. Like, before that I can hold them accountable to that new accountability. Because if they were doing nothing but sitting there and focusing on leadership training, then maybe that could be shortened. But if they're flying the plane, building the plane, making the wheels move in the plane, and now we have to recontextualize our leadership and our culture, and it's a tall ask. It's a tall ask.
And it's not that we have to understand what all or any of this is going to be up front. Some people do really well having the whole plan laid out and knowing step after step after step. Even if that plan were to actually continue to be accurate all the way through, and even if we do have that
big
plan, really big if, it doesn't mean that we have to be focus on it any more than right now.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who the big plans don't work, that's fine. All you need to know is, what's the next step? Okay, what did we learn taking that step? What does that suggest for what the next step is? This seems like we're focusing just very close in and not doing any of the big strategic work that leaders are, quote, supposed to be doing. But in fact, this can be more strategic than coming up with the grand visions and plans that everyone tries to execute on, and I have never seen actually succeed all the way through. Because this is recognizing the reality of every step that we take is completely changing our entire situation.
Yeah.
And we're going to need to reassess. What we thought made sense may not make sense at all. It may make sense to some extent and not to others. Even if it completely accurately 100% still makes sense, reassessing each step and verifying that, yep, this still makes sense, this still makes sense, this still makes sense, is the safest way I've found to transform cultures and teams in ways that people feel embraced by those guardrails rather than confined.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And then to integrate your findings too, because you're going to discover things along the way that will actually facilitate. So it's having that moment to say, hey, sometimes you get in there and you realize, oh, I don't have to work as hard to do this as I thought. So I can shorten this timeline here. And, that you have those surprises as well. So.
And knowing that we don't have to work on these great big timelines, that we can use those as guides and still just be focused on right now makes everything so much easier. For people, Gary, who would like to you about having your help in removing themselves from the roadblocks in their business, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So, GaryMontalvo.com is my website. Gary at GaryMontalvo.com is my email. I'm very Googleable. Just look up Gary Montalvo and you'll find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on all the things.
That sounds great. And I'll have all those links in the show notes. What would you like to leave our audience with today, Gary?
So a lot of you guys are going to be, you're in the tech world, so you're going to be really focused on, people in tech tend to be more task-oriented, more, operations-oriented. And I just want to remind people to really get invested authentically, genuinely in the people and in the development of the people. And the fulfillment of the people as well. When you do that, and it doesn't have to be really complicated. It could literally be just a hallway conversation. Hey, I heard your kid was sick. What's going on? I can't stress enough the difference that makes. And not only will you have a team that is ready to go to the mat for you and with you, but for you as well, it's an opportunity to expand your leadership and your capacity to make an impact. Which I think at the end of the day, that's what we mostly care about, right? We want to leave our little mark on this big giant rock that's rotating around the sun. So yeah, and don't feel like you have to do it alone. That's always been a mistake of mine as well. Like I got this. I got the world on my shoulders. No, you don't have to do that. There's so many people that can help and support you. Find the right one for you. Whoever that is, and get the support that you need to get you where you want to go, or at least to help you feel relief. And help you feel at ease. I think about all those years that I kept going to work every day, going like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Not realizing that it was like, oh, that was optional. Okay.
That's great. Thank you for spending this time with me today, Gary.
Thank you. You're lovely. I appreciate you so much. Your questions are really insightful, and I love the work that you're doing here in the podcast. It's such a great platform. So thank you for allowing me to be part of it.
You're welcome. And the audience, thank you for joining us today. Gary and I would love to know, what are you curious about with your people, and what are you going to go curiously inquire about how things are going today? Thanks, and have a great day.